Jesus stood just a few feet from me, but it felt like he was everywhere at once. Not just in front of me, but inside every broken part I had tried to hide. I didn't want to look at him, because in that moment I felt like he could see through me. See all of it, the pain, the shame, the lies I'd told myself. But I couldn't stop looking, because his eyes weren't filled with anger. They weren't filled with judgment. They were filled with something that hurt worse than hate. They were filled with love. Not the kind of love I used to make fun of. Not the kind of love I thought only weak people believed in. This was something bigger. Something terrifyingly holy. I dropped to my knees without meaning to, not because I was afraid, but because my soul knew I didn't deserve to be standing in front of that kind of love.
I have known you since before your first breath, and I have loved you through every moment you thought you were unlovable. You have built walls to protect yourself from pain, but those same walls have kept you from ever being truly free.
I started shaking, not because it was cold, but because something inside me was unraveling. The things I had believed for so long were breaking down. Everything I thought made me strong, my independence, my rejection of men, my identity, it all felt so fragile in front of him. He didn't move, but somehow I was now surrounded by light. Not the kind of light that blinds you, but the kind that fills in every dark corner and forces you to see what's been hiding.
Your identity was never meant to be a reaction to pain, but a reflection of purpose and love that I designed for you from the beginning. You have been living from fear and calling it freedom. But real freedom only begins when you stop running from truth.
I couldn't hold it anymore, and I started sobbing. Not because he was condemning me, but because he wasn't. And that kind of mercy breaks something deep inside you. He reached out his hand, and the moment he touched me, the darkness around us disappeared, and a new place opened before my eyes. It wasn't Earth, but it wasn't a dream either. It felt more real than anything I had ever known. Like waking up for the first time in your life and realizing you had been asleep. There were colors I couldn't name, sounds that didn't come from instruments but made something inside me feel alive in a way I didn't know existed. There were beings there, radiant and powerful. I don't know if they were angels. I just knew I wasn't alone, and I didn't feel afraid anymore. But even in the beauty, even in the light, I felt something heavy inside me, a weight I had carried for years that didn't belong in a place like this.
You have carried pain that was never yours to keep and hatred that never brought you peace. If you want to live in the truth, you must first be willing to let go of the lies.
Then he showed me. He didn't tell me. He showed me my life. It was like watching a film only I could feel. Every moment of my childhood, every tear my mother cried, every time I felt abandoned, unseen, unworthy. I saw my father leaving, and I saw the moment that belief was born in me, that men cannot be trusted, that love will always abandon you. And I saw how that one moment became the foundation of everything I would come to believe about the world and about myself. I saw the men I ignored, the ones who were kind, the ones who showed up, the ones who didn't deserve my hatred but received it anyway. I saw the truth, and it hurt more than the lie ever did.
The enemy of your soul plants seeds in your wounds and calls it identity. But I came to give you something true. I came to heal not just your heart, but the foundation of who you think you are.
I saw my father again, this time older, alone, crying, not because someone told him to, but because he knew what he had broken. And everything in me screamed, no, he doesn't deserve my forgiveness. But another part of me, the part that had been touched by his light, whispered, maybe forgiveness isn't about what they deserve.
Forgiveness is not a reward for the innocent, but a release for the wounded who are ready to be whole. You cannot heal while holding on to hate because hate is just another form of chains.
I broke again, not in defeat, but in surrender. I had been so strong for so long, but in his presence, I didn't need to be strong anymore. I just needed to be honest. And the truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore. But for the first time, I was ready to find out.
I made you with a purpose that fear cannot erase and pain cannot destroy. You still have a choice, and I will not force you, but if you trust me, I will lead you into life.
I looked up at him, still on my knees, tears streaming down my face. and all I could whisper was, I don't want to be who I was anymore. And that's when everything changed. Let me stop here for a moment. If this is hitting something inside you, something raw, something buried, don't just keep it to yourself. Write a comment. Tell me what belief you've been living with that maybe never came from truth in the first place. This isn't just my story. It could be yours too. There's more, and you need to hear it. It happened on a Thursday night, just like any other. The kind of evening where nothing feels significant until everything changes in a single moment. The porch light outside my house had been flickering for days, and even though I kept telling myself I'd deal with it later, I finally got tired of putting it off. I had just finished washing the dishes, barefoot still in my pajamas, hair pulled back without thinking, and I grabbed the ladder like I'd done 100 times before. There was no hesitation, no warning, no dramatic music playing in the background to tell me my life was about to split into a before and after. I climbed up casually, holding the new bulb in one hand, the other steadying me against the frame, and I didn't even notice how slick the metal felt beneath my feet. The air was damp, the kind of heavy humidity that lingers after a soft rain, the kind that makes concrete darker and metal just slippery enough to betray you. As I reached up with the bulb, twisting it into the socket like I had so many times before, I felt the ladder shift just a little beneath my left foot. It wasn't much, just enough to throw me off balance for a second, just enough to make the world tilt and my heart skip a beat. Then I slipped. There was no time to catch myself, no time to scream or grab for anything, just the sensation of air and gravity working together to pull me down fast and hard. My head struck the concrete step at the bottom of the porch, and the sound it made was sharp and hollow, like a dropped melon splitting open. Everything went white, then black, then quiet. I don't remember pain, not in the way you'd expect, just a pressure, then silence, like someone hit mute on the whole universe in one clean motion. What I didn't know was that my neighbor, Mr. Harold, had just stepped outside to take his trash to the curb when he heard the thud. He saw the flickering porch light and the motionless body at the bottom of the steps, and within seconds he was running over, shouting my name. He called 911, knelt beside me, trying to find a pulse, but there was no response, no movement, no breath. By the time the paramedics arrived, I had been unconscious for several minutes, and when they got me to St. Luke's Hospital, my heart had already stopped. They pronounced me clinically dead at 11:47 p.m. No pulse, no oxygen to the brain, flatline. The medical record says I was gone for 8 full minutes, and that should have been the end. It should have been nothing, just silence, just darkness, just the end of everything. But instead, it was the beginning. At first, I didn't know I was dead. It felt like I had simply stood up, like I had blacked out and then blinked, and now everything around me was calm and still and strangely weightless. I looked down and saw myself lying there, sprawled out on the porch, my head tilted at an awkward angle, blood seeping beneath me, eyes half open but empty. I tried to scream, to move, to reach out, but nothing worked. My arms passed through my body like mist. My voice made no sound, and I realized something terrifying. I wasn't breathing. Not because I was holding my breath, but because I no longer needed to. I wasn't touching the ground. I was hovering slightly above it, just enough to make it feel unnatural. I floated into my house without opening the door, passed through it like vapor. And the inside looked exactly the same, but somehow less real. Then it started to shift. The walls blurred, the floor disappeared, and everything around me collapsed into total black. But this wasn't the kind of darkness you experience when you close your eyes. This was a kind of absence I didn't have words for. No sound, no space, no shape, no direction, just nothing. And in that nothing, I began to feel something I'd never felt before. Not fear, not yet, but something deeper, colder, like being buried under silence with no sense of time or self. Then I heard it. At first, it was just a whisper, faint, distant, impossible to locate. Then more voices overlapping, circling, all speaking one thing. She never believed. She always rejected the truth. She thought she knew everything. They weren't angry. They weren't shouting. But their words pierced me harder than any scream could have. I wanted to run, but I had no feet. I wanted to hide, but there was no place to go. That's when I saw it. Like looking through glass from above, I saw the hospital room I was being rushed into. Doctors, yelling nurses, running machines, blaring. I watched as they pressed paddles to my chest, shouting clear, trying again and again to bring me back. Then I heard it. Time of death, 11:47 p.m. It hit me like a wave crashing into my soul. I was dead. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't some drug-induced vision. I was watching my body from somewhere else, and it was real. And that's when I felt it. A force pulling me away from the hospital, like a current stronger than gravity dragging me deeper into the void. I tried to resist, to hold on to the image of the doctors, the machines, the life I had just left behind. But it slipped away, and all that remained was the darkness. I don't know how long I drifted in that darkness, because in that place time wasn't linear. It didn't pass in seconds or minutes. It just existed like weight pressing against my soul. There was no pain, no body to ache, no breath to lose, only a growing sense of separation from everything I had ever known, and it scared me in a way I can't explain. And just when the silence felt like it would swallow me whole, I saw something. At first it was just a distant light, a single point barely noticeable. But as I stared, it grew slowly like a sunrise pressing through the void. It wasn't just light, it was warmth. Not the heat of fire, but something gentler, something that wrapped around me like memory and longing woven together. The fear didn't vanish instantly, but it began to melt piece by piece as the light came closer. Then I realized it wasn't a light floating toward me. It was a person walking. The shape became clearer with every step, tall, calm, glowing, but not in a way that blinded. And the moment I saw his face, I knew who it was. Jesus. Not because someone told me, not because of a picture I'd seen in a church I never went to. I just knew. My whole being recognized him. And in that moment, I completely fell apart. All the walls I had built inside me over the years, the identity I had constructed out of fear and control, they didn't just crack, they shattered. Because when he looked at me, I felt seen in a way I had never known was possible. He didn't look at me like a judge. He didn't look at me like a savior trying to fix me. He looked at me like someone who had always loved me, even when I didn't believe he was real. I dropped to my knees without thinking, and I didn't have to speak because somehow I knew. He already knew everything I wanted to say. The shame rose up so fast I couldn't stop it. Every mistake, every harsh word, every choice I made from pain instead of love, they all stood between us like fire. And still, he stepped closer.
I have seen you in every moment you thought no one saw. I have heard the questions you never spoke out loud, and I held every tear you were too strong to cry. You never had to be perfect for me to love you.
I couldn't hold it in. My soul trembled as if the truth itself had arms, and was wrapping around me so tightly it broke something loose inside. I tried to explain myself, to justify, to say I didn't know better, that I was just trying to survive. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down I knew he wasn't interested in excuses. He was offering something else entirely. Mercy. And then something happened that I wasn't prepared for. The space around us shifted. We were still in the same place, if you can call it a place, but now it felt brighter, wider, almost alive. And suddenly, images began to appear in the air around me. Scenes from my life. Not memories like I remembered them, but the truth behind them. I saw myself as a little girl, sitting on the floor, coloring in silence, while my mom cried quietly in the kitchen after another call that went unanswered. I saw my father leaving, not storming out in anger, but walking away with regret in his eyes and brokenness in his posture. I saw moments I had forgotten, or maybe ignored. A teacher who stayed after school to help me with math because she believed I was smarter than I let on. A neighbor who fixed our sink without asking for anything in return. A waiter who always smiled and treated us kindly, even when my mom could barely afford a tip. Men who were kind. Men who tried. Men I never noticed because I had already decided all of them were the enemy.
You did not choose who you were out of love. You chose it because it felt safer than being vulnerable again. I never designed you to live behind walls built from fear.
That truth hit harder than any accusation. Because it wasn't said with anger. It was said with heartbreak. I had spent my whole life defending an identity that was born from a wound, not from freedom. And Jesus didn't rip it away from me. He simply revealed what I had buried underneath it. I had believed I was protecting myself, but all I was doing was staying hidden from the love I was made for.
I made you with purpose. Rachel, every detail, every breath, every gift in you came from my hand, and I never left, even when you ran.
My body, if you can call it that, collapsed fully into the ground of whatever place we were in, not out of exhaustion, but out of surrender. Because there's something about being seen fully and still being loved completely that makes you realize how deeply you've been starving for it. He reached out his hand, not to drag me up, not to shame me, but to simply offer it. And when I took it, everything changed. The space around us bloomed with color, colors I don't have names for, sounds that weren't music, but still made my soul sing. I felt light, not physically, but inside, like decades of pain had been lifted in one breath. And yet, there was still a weight on my heart, because he hadn't brought me there just to comfort me. There was something more, a truth I still hadn't faced, and I could feel it coming, even in the beauty of that place. In the warmth and peace of standing face to face with the one I had spent my whole life denying, I felt something heavy pressing on my chest. It wasn't fear anymore, and it wasn't shame like before. It was something deeper. Something I couldn't quite name until I looked into his eyes again and understood. There was more he needed me to see. Not because he wanted to punish me, but because he loved me too much to let me carry lies any longer. So he showed me, not with words, but with something greater. The space around us shifted again. And this time it wasn't light or sound that filled it, it was memory. But memory from a view I had never seen before. I watched myself as a little girl, not through my own eyes, but from above, as if heaven itself had kept record of every wound I never spoke aloud. I saw my mother standing by the window, waiting, hoping, then turning away in silence when the door never opened and the phone never rang. I saw her hold me tighter than usual the day he left, her hand brushing through my hair, her voice trembling as she whispered, "We don't need him. We'll never need any man." That sentence didn't feel like comfort anymore. It felt like a seed, one that would grow into roots I never saw until now. Roots that wrapped around my heart, shaped my decisions, shaped my beliefs, even shaped what I thought was love. Then came more images, moments I had dismissed as irrelevant. A male teacher telling me I was gifted and that I could do more if I believed in myself. A male neighbor offering to fix our fence for free because he didn't want to see a single mom struggle. A male coworker who offered to walk me to my car at night without asking for anything in return. They were all around me, and I had refused to see them because the story I had chosen to believe was simpler, safer, cleaner. All men were bad, so any act of goodness didn't fit the narrative, and I had learned how to ignore it.
The lies we believe do not begin in our heads. They begin in our wounds, and if they go untouched, they shape our reality.
He wasn't angry when he said it. He looked at me the way a doctor looks at a patient who's finally ready for the truth about what's been making them sick.
You didn't choose your identity out of love, Rachel. You chose it because it promised you control in a world that had stolen your safety.
I felt like the air had left my lungs, even though I wasn't breathing in the normal sense. That sentence undid something inside me. Because I had spent so many years defending who I thought I was, wearing it like armor, turning it into something righteous, something bold, something sacred. But in his presence, I could see what it really was, a shield, one I picked up so early I didn't even know it was in my hand.
You were not made to live in reaction to your wounds. You were made to live in the freedom of who I designed you to be.
And then I saw something else. My father, older now, sitting alone in a small living room, hunched over, holding a picture I couldn't make out. He was crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just silent tears falling from a face full of regret. And everything in me tensed up, because even in heaven I didn't want to forgive him. I didn't want to let go of the one story that made me feel strong. He left us, he broke her, he abandoned me. But then Jesus spoke again.
Forgiveness is not saying what they did was right. Forgiveness is saying you will no longer let their wrong define your future.
My whole body trembled, because I knew what he was saying was true. My pain hadn't changed him. My anger hadn't healed my mother. And the story I told myself for years had only buried the part of me that was still bleeding.
I have known you since the womb. I have seen every choice you made to stay safe. But now I am asking you, do you want to be free?
I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. Because saying yes would mean letting go of everything I had built, everything I had believed, everything I had used to keep myself from ever feeling helpless again. But he didn't rush me. He didn't force me. He just waited. His eyes steady, his love unmoving. And in that silence, I felt something shift, a whisper rising up from inside the part of me that still believed there had to be more than survival. Yes, I want to be free. He smiled, not like someone who won, but like someone who had waited years for that moment.
Then you must forgive.
Not just your father, not just the people who hurt you, but yourself.
You have carried a name that was never mine. Now let me show you who you really are.
I closed my eyes and I let go, not in a way that felt dramatic or loud, just simple, like loosening my grip on something I didn't need anymore. And in that moment, I felt a weight leave my soul that I hadn't even known was there. I opened my eyes, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Even after everything he had shown me, after the truth had settled into my chest like fire and mercy at the same time, there was still one thing left undone. Forgiveness. Not the kind you speak about lightly, not the kind people post on social media with pretty backgrounds and captions about healing, but the kind that costs something real. I had said I wanted to be free, and now I had to decide if I meant it, because freedom wasn't just about understanding where the pain came from, it was about choosing what I'd do with it now. That's when he showed me my father again. He looked older this time, tired, worn down in a way that went beyond his face. Like life had pressed hard against him for years. He was sitting at a table, head in his hands, a photo of me clutched between his fingers like it was all he had left, and he was crying. Not loudly, not in rage or desperation, but the kind of cry that has no sound, just the slow surrender of someone who finally sees what they've broken. And still, part of me didn't care. Because in my story, he had always been the one who walked away. The one who left my mother alone and me abandoned. For years, that story gave me power. Something to stand on when the world felt uncertain. Something that made sense when nothing else did. But now that power felt like poison. And Jesus, still standing beside me, spoke again with a voice gentler than silence.
You cannot heal while holding what hurt you. Your anger may feel like strength, but it is a chain. If you want to be free, then forgive.
I shook my head at first, not out of rebellion, but fear. Because what if forgiveness meant losing the only protection I had ever known? What if letting go made me vulnerable again, made the pain real again? Or worse, what if I forgave and he never changed or cared? But that wasn't the point, because forgiveness was never about changing him. It was about releasing me.
Forgiveness is not saying they were right. It is saying you will no longer let their wrong define your story.
The words didn't come as commands. They came as invitations. And slowly, piece by piece, the resistance I had built began to fall. I thought about how long I had carried the weight, how often I replayed the same scenes to justify the wall I built between me and freedom. But standing in front of Jesus, in that place untouched by time, there was no more space for lies. I was tired of guarding a wound, tired of calling it strength, tired of defending a pain I no longer wanted to keep. So I closed my eyes, and I said the words I never thought I'd say. Not because he deserved it, but because I couldn't live with the weight anymore. I forgive him. It didn't feel magical. It didn't feel dramatic, but it felt honest, like opening a window in a house that hadn't breathed in decades. And in that instant, something left me. I don't know what it was, but it had been heavy, and when it left, I felt lighter than I ever thought possible. Jesus looked at me. No celebration, no applause, just love. The kind that doesn't need noise or approval to be real.
You have done what many never will, and because of that you will walk with a freedom many will never know.
Then he said something that startled me, not in tone but in truth, something I hadn't even considered but immediately knew was true.
Now forgive yourself.
I hadn't thought about that part, but it landed heavier than all the rest, because for all the blame I put on others, I had always blamed myself more. Maybe you're the reason he left. Maybe you weren't enough. Maybe if you had just been easier to love, none of this would have happened. That voice had followed me for years. In every failed relationship, in every guarded response, in every choice that looked like power but was born from fear. But now, I had a choice, and I was done letting lies narrate the story of someone already redeemed. So I forgave myself for trying to be everything pain demanded, for becoming someone survival created, instead of someone love had already called good. I forgave myself for carrying burdens never meant for me, for trusting fear more than God, for thinking I had to earn what had already been freely given. And in that moment, I truly felt it. Not numbness, but peace. Not escape, but resurrection. The kind of peace that wakes you up, that fills dry bones with breath, that replaces shame with stillness and control with clarity. I stood in that holy place, with Jesus beside me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the weight of proving, protecting, or pretending. I didn't earn it. I simply received it, and that was more than enough. After the moment of forgiveness, after the release of years of anger, blame, and control, I felt a stillness fall over everything, like the final breath before a new beginning. Jesus stood in front of me, not with urgency or command, but with a tenderness that felt like sunrise breaking through years of silent night. He reached for my hand again, and though he didn't speak with his mouth, his words filled the air around us like music. I didn't need ears to understand.
Now, Thexat, you have let go of your chains. There is one more thing I must ask of you.
I looked up at him, not afraid anymore, just open, and I already sensed what he was about to say before the words formed.
Go back. Rachel, your story is not finished yet.
I wanted to stay. Everything in me longed to remain in that place of peace, of clarity, of perfect love. But something inside me nodded without resistance. Because I finally understood this place was never meant to be an escape. It was a restoration, a returning. And so I said yes, not with words, but with surrender. The moment I let go, everything changed. The colors around me faded. The warmth that had filled my spirit began to thin like mist in morning air. And then all at once I was falling. Not physically, not with fear, but with weight, with gravity, with the heaviness of returning to something broken. My body on my old world, pain hit first. Sharp, pulsing, urgent. It rushed in like water through a cracked dam, slamming into my chest and lungs and head all at once. Then came the sound. Machines beeping, voices yelling, footsteps running. My throat was raw. My eyes were heavy, and my body felt like a prison after walking through eternity without flesh. I opened my eyes slowly, and the fluorescent lights of the hospital ceiling came into view. I was back, alive, breathing, weak, but here. I heard someone gasp. Then a nurse shouted down the hallway, "She's back. My God, she's back." I wanted to speak, to tell them what had happened, to explain the fire that had passed through my soul and returned me clean. But no words came, just tears. Slow, quiet tears. Because I had touched something eternal, and now I was trying to fit back into something temporary. Dr. Patel came rushing in. He checked my vitals, stared at the monitor, then looked at me like I had defied the laws he had studied his entire life. "You were gone for 8 minutes, clinically dead." I nodded slowly, because there was no other way to respond. 8 minutes on their clocks, but it had felt like a lifetime in the presence of Jesus. The days that followed were a blur of machines, fears, questions, and confusion. My mom arrived in tears, holding my face and whispering that I had scared her to death. I wanted to tell her everything, to tell her that I saw the truth, that I saw Dad, that I forgave him, that I finally understood what had been breaking us all these years. But the words caught in my throat, not because I didn't believe, but because I didn't know if they would believe me. They said I might have dreamed it, that maybe it was oxygen deprivation, brain misfiring, a hallucination created by trauma and stress. But I knew what I saw, I knew what I felt. I knew the voice of the one who made me, the eyes that looked straight into my soul and didn't flinch. And no one, not science, not theory, not even time, could take that from me. So I waited until I had the strength to speak it clearly, not from fear, but from freedom. And when I finally stood in front of the mirror again, bruised, bandaged, exhausted, I didn't see the same woman. I saw someone born again, not in body, but in truth. Leaving the hospital felt like stepping into a world I no longer belonged to, not because I hated it, but because something in me no longer fit the way it once did. The streets looked the same. My apartment smelled the same. My favorite coffee tasted the same, but I wasn't the same. It's hard to explain how everything familiar can suddenly feel like a costume you used to wear, like trying to live inside a shell you quietly outgrew while no one was looking. I tried to return to normal. I answered emails. I texted friends. I turned on shows I used to binge without thinking, but none of it held me anymore. Conversations that used to entertain me felt empty. Opinions I used to argue felt distant. And every moment in silence seemed to echo with a question I couldn't ignore. What do I do with this truth? The world I came back to wasn't built for stories like mine. We celebrate survival, but we avoid talking about the soul. We scream about identity, but we whisper about pain. We tell people to speak their truth until their truth doesn't match what we expect. And I knew mine wouldn't. Because mine didn't come wrapped in a slogan or a label. It came from the mouth of Jesus. And the truth he gave me didn't just set me free. It broke me open. It redefined everything I thought I knew about myself, about love, about forgiveness, about strength. But I stayed silent, at least for a little while. Not because I doubted it happened, but because I was afraid of what people would say. I imagined the headlines. Gay woman sees Jesus changes life. Delusional trauma victim claims heaven is real. Another fake NDE trying to convert people. And for a moment the fear won until I remembered what he said to me.
You were not given a new life just to hide it. You are a light, Rachel, and light is meant to be seen.
That sentence lit a fire in my bones I couldn't contain, because this story was never mine to protect, it was his. He gave it to me so others could hear what I heard, see what I saw, feel what I felt when the weight lifted and the chains broke. So I started speaking, slowly at first, in journal entries I didn't think anyone would read. Then to friends who looked at me with wide eyes and quiet confusion. Then online, one trembling post at a time. And people listened. Some mocked, some ignored, but some wept. Some messaged me to say they had been questioning everything, and my story gave them the courage to ask again. Some told me they hadn't prayed in years, but that night they whispered something into the dark just in case he was listening. And I realized he still is. He always was. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've been through, what you've built your life on, what you've run from, or what you've tried to forget. But I do know this. There is a truth stronger than trauma. There is a love deeper than fear. And there is a God who sees you, knows you, and is not afraid of your questions or your scars.
I have never been afraid of your darkness. Rachel, I came to bring you light.
So now I live different, not because someone made me, but because love remade me. I study the Bible now, not out of obligation, but out of hunger. I forgive faster, I listen longer, and I love people more gently than I ever did before. Because I remember what it felt like to carry bitterness like armor. And I remember what it felt like when Jesus took it from me. If you're still here listening, thank you. That means more than you know. And if this story stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Ask the hard questions. Sit in the silence. And if you're brave enough, whisper his name, because I promise you this, he's closer than you think. If you're still here with me, if something in your heart hasn't stopped stirring since this story began, Noel, then maybe this wasn't just a video for you. Maybe this was a moment. And maybe this moment was meant to wake something up inside you that's been silent for too long. So don't walk away from it like it's just another scroll-through piece of content. Take a breath. Let it sink in. And if it moved you even a little, leave a comment and tell me where you are in your story. If you felt seen or shaken or unsure but curious, then hit subscribe right now, because this is just the beginning. And someone out there needs to hear this next. Share this with them. Be bold enough to believe that your share could change a life. Just like mine was changed that night. This message isn't mine, it's ours. Let's carry it together.